Okay. So the question was, which life insurance is best for what purpose now?
Well, for what you're suggesting, and using it as an investment to build your own wealth and be able to borrow against yourself. Or
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the correct way to say it.
Yeah. So from a cash value perspective, you have two options, whole life or index universal life. Now, the reason why I use index universal life when I can use whole life. I can be licensed to sell just about any and every whole life product that's out there, but I don't use them. And here's the reason why. Whole life is designed differently than index universal life. So if we look at the timeline, whole life was first, then universal life was created, and then index universal life was created. Now you also have variable universal life as well. We're not even talking about that because that's investments. Part of the reason why I use index universal life is because it allows me to get stock market gains without the stock market losses. Okay. You can't get that one. You
Okay.
can't get that with whole life. Whole life is driven by interest rates and dividends. And there's nothing wrong with whole life. There's a lot of people in the whole life community who sell a lot of it. They're doing well for their clients. I don't use it because of my preference and how and being able to position the client to maximize their gains. If we look at a chart, we look at interest rates, we look at dividends, we look at stock market. Obviously, the stock market beats out all of them. The problem is when the stock market takes a correction, that loss is a true financial loss. Even though people try to tell you, oh, it's just a paper loss. No, because when you have a market loss, that money is gone forever. And if you compound that loss over time, the longer of a period you go from the time you lost that money, that loss grows. And so with Index Universal Life, we're able to get the market gain without that loss. And so that's the basic difference between the two, and that's the reason why I use Index Universal Life. So good question.
Right. So that's the one. That's the one that I
Right.
have. But I guess because I didn't start it off and make it as high, I guess, in terms of the reward at my death, to increase that. I think I think you were saying that I had to start that one all over.
Okay, no,
Okay.
okay. So yeah, so you bring up another good point here because of the way that the policy was designed in the beginning, we were just trying to give you something to get started with. So
Okay.
we wanted to give you create a death benefit that allowed some cash accumulation and death benefit because that's the reason why it's called flexible, adjustable life insurance. You can adjust it. It's flexible. We can move it around. The challenge that we have because of that death benefit, there's a max dollar amount that we're going to be able to put into the policy. Because of
Okay.
what we're talking about of doing equity transfer, we're going to hit that max real quick with that policy. That's why I was saying that you're going to need to open up a second one because we're going to cap that other one out. One of the
Okay.
beauties of life insurance is that as long as you can demonstrate insurable interest and financial need, you can get as much insurance as you want, but it is capped per policy. And that cap is much higher. Well, it depends on the death benefit and your age, which determines the cap. But we leverage that by just getting multiple policies. And I think what I'm going to do here is if you have a question, I'm going to answer those questions like at the beginning. So if you have something you want to address, which I strongly encourage, I gotta, get. Remember, I do so many case design reviews every week, so I get a call a day from a client. Client had been out of touch, and make a long story short, they've been listening to some material about the Index Universal Life, and now she's interested in max funding her policy. Well, it's 10 years old. And so we're going to be looking at getting a new policy, but maxing out the one that she has. So here's the point that I'm making. The purpose of this class, okay, and what we teach, we are teaching a concept where we want to focus on what? We want to focus on doubling the equity position of your properties, regardless of market conditions. Why is that so important? Why is it so important? And the reason why that's important is because while at the same time we are doubling or positioning you to double your property equity value, secondly, we want that at the same time, we want to double your cash reserve. If you do not have a date where you know or you are anticipating or you are projecting to double your cash reserves, we need to talk. Okay. And then third is cash flow. We want you to be able to double your cash flow or your flow of cash without the need of a tenant. So the trifecta of this process is a financial superpower where the objective is for you to be able to keep your same budget unless you can do more, but you're creating a scenario where you're using a strategy, a system to fulfill these three objectives and keep your budget the same. Again, unless you can do more, right? And that is the power behind what we teach. And so the life insurance component of it is that the life insurance provides protection. It protects you. How does it protect me? Well, there's a death benefit to protect my family. Yes. There are also the living benefits, which you have a cancer, heart attack, stroke, and several other ones, where your policy, depending on the severity of your condition, your policy has a cash reserve that you can tap into in the case of those critical or chronic illnesses or conditions. So, and then life insurance on the cash value side is one of the most powerful financial tools because you can create arbitrage. What is arbitrage? Arbitrage simply means that I can take a dollar, use it, but continue to grow it at the same time. I can use the money and continue to grow it at the same time. This is very important. We understand this. And I can do that in multiple ways at the same time. For example, when I take a policy loan, I can have multiple policy loans fulfilling multiple of financial objectives at the same time, where each loan is being handled differently. I can have one loan, I'm using that to buy a property. Another loan, maybe I'm loaning it out as a hard money lender. Another loan, I'm using that to finance my my Toro business, right? And all of that is arbitraging, simply meaning that I am using the money and it's growing at the same time. Then the third piece of that is velocity of cash. When I am loaning the money out or borrowing the money from myself and paying myself back, the financial challenge that we have and that we don't see, that we're not recognizing, because we don't get a statement for this. There's no statement. You know, if you're not evaluating this, if you're not tracking this, you just don't know what's happening. So for example, when I put money into a 401k, okay, and then at some point, I'm going to take the money out. When I take the money out, I got to pay taxes on that. And I am also depleting that fund. Even if it's getting interest, I'm still depleting that fund. My income, when we earn income, we earn that income and then we spend it. We earn every 2 weeks, we get paid, we earn it, we spend it, we earn it, we spend it. We are depleting the economic power of that money. That's what we're trying to reverse. We want to be able to create arbitrage so that when we fund the policy, we fund it to be able to use it. So we have internal cost. So we fund it, we have internal costs, and then we want to take money out of it in the form of a loan, While we're doing that, there is loan interest, but then there's also a crediting of an index for that particular year if there is a positive index crediting. But here's the point that I'm making. When I borrow this money, this number two, when I borrow the money and I am using it to purchase an asset, that asset is also going to create cash flow or a profit of some kind. Okay. This is actually getting right into the lesson. What we're doing here by recycling the money, so I'm making a profit from this loan, okay? Number four is me paying the loan back. Now I can pay the loan back how I want to pay the loan back. In other words, I can create a 5-year amortization table. I can create a 10-year amortization table. I can create an 18-month amortization table. What we want to keep in mind with number four when we are paying the loan back is how soon will I need to reuse that money? Listen to me, family. This is the piece right here. So instead of depleting it, we want to position ourselves to do what? To be able to reuse the money. When we're paying a debt, or even when we're buying an investment, when we pay a debt or we buy an investment, we're still creating that depleting. However, when we recycle our money and we're using arbitrage because we're taking a loan from ourselves, remember that money continues to grow as if I never took it out. So not only do I have that, but I am repaying myself. Why? So that I can reuse the money. If you could go back 5 years from a credit card that you've been paying, okay, so you pay your credit card, your balance, what? Your balance goes back up. But you're making profit for the bank. What we want to do is replace what the bank, we want to replace the bank and make that profit for ourselves and be able to duplicate that over and over and over and over again. Some of you, if we took a survey, some of you are paying as high as 30% on your credit card. What if you were making 30% on your own money? And what if you were literally creating a 50% return on your money simply by understanding how to recycle and recapture? This is the reason why understanding index universal life is so important, especially when we talk about how to use it to solve current financial problems and how do we use it to create right now wealth. That's why there is no financial power that is more powerful than this, and this is reflective of the scriptures. When he says that I make you 1,000 times more, he's talking about the infinity process of creating uninterrupted compounding. Now y'all getting extra bonus talk today because I'm really in the lesson. I'm in pages 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 of the Wealthy Code. We just haven't looked at it yet, but I promise you we're right there. We're trying to create uninterrupted compounding. Uninterrupted compounding simply means that my money is still working for me even though I'm using it. That's the reason why you can't, when people say, well, what's the least amount I'm putting into it? That is a borrower's mindset because what you're saying is, what's the least amount of wealth I can accumulate? When we should be thinking, how much more can I put in there so that I can do what? Build more wealth and have more opportunities and options. Because as long as I am using my credit card, as long as I am paying a mortgage, you are literally giving away thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. We want to prevent that. We want to replace that process and use the infinity system to do that. And that's why we say double equity, double cash reserve, double cash flow. Okay, now, any questions? Any questions? So, and that's the reason why I ask you guys, when is your property equity going to double? Because if that is not a part of your active financial profile, you are giving away tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars and you don't see it because it's not in your statement. It's not in your mortgage statement. It's not in your savings statement. Nobody's calculating this opportunity cost. And opportunity cost, unfortunately, is not looked at when we put money down for a business or we put money down for a property. We don't understand that that is a massive negative wealth transfer. And when we know how to use recycling and recapturing, we eliminate that wealth transfer. So I hope that you guys got into the second chapter of Wealthy Code. I hope this is not the first time you're reviewing it. If it is, no problem. I can only tell you to start to read these chapters. Someone was just sharing they read the book. I said, listen, read it 10 more times. Why? Because we're trying to get our minds to think in terms of thinking like the banker. We want to get out of the borrower's mindset. The borrower's mindset is holding us back. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, as you begin to embark on transferring your mind into the banker's mindset, you're going to have fewer and fewer people to talk to when it comes to your money, because most people make financial decisions from a borrower's mindset and not a banker's mindset. Woo, goodness gracious. Okay, so I want to read this. So he's talking about, he shows his graph, right? And I think this is so awesome because this is my mentor. I consider George Anton a mentor. And one of the learning developments that what happens when you have a mentor is that not only do you learn what they teach, but you learn your own philosophy as an extension of what they teach and the other things that you've learned, and you actually can improve upon what he's saying. And that's what we teach here. That's exactly what I've been able to do, is I have improved upon what he's saying. But to understand this part, especially as an investor, because unfortunately, most investors think like who? The borrower or the banker? They think like the borrower, okay? So so he's got three columns. He's got the appreciation column, he's got the cash flow column, what he calls a cash influx column. Over in the appreciation column, he talks about using what we call forced appreciation. What do we say? We say we want you to double your property equity value, or we want to literally artificially or force. Ooh, the Bible says the violent take it by force. So we're literally forcing compounding, and we're forcing the increase of cash creation when we use this strategy that I teach. We're forcing appreciation. So regardless, and here's one of the advantages of it. When we force appreciation, it's got nothing to do with property value as it pertains to comparing the values. We don't care about that. We need to make sure that we are appreciating our equity value faster than what the value is growing in your community. And if you happen to live somewhere or you got a property somewhere that's falling in value, that should have zero impact on you when you are following the trifecta of what we teach. Lord have mercy. If this ain't good stuff, I don't know what else y'all want. Okay. That deals with time in the market. Why? Because if we are literally systematically forcing appreciation of the value of that property, we're breaking the laws of market timing. Why? Because we're automatically increasing the wealth. We're automatically increasing the value of that equity. Normal market, we don't care nothing about the normal market. Dear real estate agents, let me show you the value of the reason why using me as an ally to help you close more sales. We run an analysis, right? You run an analysis in your expertise, and you can show what the property has appreciated over a period of time, right? We can run our own analysis and show them by buying the property that you're presenting, how they can force appreciate over time and create an ultra market positioning by learning how to increase the property value artificially. This is powerful. And this is what's not being taught. It doesn't matter if it's a single family residence, and it doesn't matter if it's creating negative cash flow. We can take a property scenario and reverse that negative cash flow to positive cash flow by following our system. Woo! So when we look at the bottom, he's saying, okay, the goal here is to build equity to turn into cash flow. No, that's not our primary objective. Our primary objective is to separate the property value from the normal property value. Our number one objective, ladies and gentlemen, is to break the norm. We want to separate the property value from the normal cycle of how property value is assessed. We want to get it out of that system, okay? So that we can do what? We can double it. And we can double it without what? Market losses or taxes. Lord have mercy. See, when this is how the bank thinks. The bank don't care about a tenant. It does not care. Now, it doesn't mean that it dismisses the tenant. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is we're not going to be subject. We don't want the profit margins that we're positioning ourselves for to be subject to what the tenants are paying. We don't want to have to put pressure on a tenant in order to increase our cash flow. No. We want to use uninterrupted compounding to create more cash flow. Uninterrupted compounding means that my money is being recycled. So the same money I'm using to pay my debt is the same money that's creating interest and cash reserves and ultimately cash flow. We want to use that system and then from there turn that into cash flow. So it's a little, our graph is a little different. But the point being made is that we still want what? Appreciation. We want appreciation no matter what. So when we look at your numbers, we do your risk assessment, right? We should be talking about year one. Let's say we had some crazy goals. We say year one, we want to make sure that your property value increases by 20%. Isn't that what the conversation we should be having? Absolutely. Because the objective is what? It's to double the property value regardless of market conditions. Don't you know that this system, this process, because you're creating a whole separate system of wealth, when you sell the property, that's not the only money that you've made. You would have made another side fund by following this system. Why? Because it focuses on appreciation without the need of the market values and normal market conditions. Okay, y'all done got me fired up. Any questions? So he says, look at this. He says, every time you do a deal, figure out which column it belongs to. It doesn't matter. Every time we do a deal, we want to position that deal to do what? Double the property equity value, regardless of market conditions. We want to double the cash reserve. We want to double the cash flow, okay? The cash flow column is where your passive income comes from. Now, I'm going to skip that and come back to it in a minute. Although this strategy could work for anything, the examples I'll provide will be for real estate because that's what we do in this book. Okay, all right, so let's keep going. Let's keep going. So he shows a chart again here. He talks about the appreciation in California. So let's read this last paragraph. In California, where over the past 25 years, real estate has appreciated at an average of 8%, much higher than the nation's 6%. $10 million worth of properties gives you $800,000 of equity gain per year for which you didn't have to work. However, equity in and of itself, listen to what he's saying here. Equity in and of itself does not do anything for you but increase your net worth. You can't eat it, you can't buy anything. You can, however, sell that equity or borrow against it. With the money generated from equity, you can buy more properties or other forms of income-producing investment vehicles. This is true. But again, We are separating ourselves from the normal trend of how real estate investors are taught. We want to think like the banker and not the borrower. This is the reason why we want to build capital reserve first, or at least as an extension of your overall financial strategy. Why? Because we're going to use that money to create what? Appreciation. Do y'all understand what we're talking about? We're going to create appreciation from what? The cash reserve that we're accumulating. This is the reason why when we say, well, how little can I do? You're working against yourself, and that's the borrower's mindset. You want to be asking yourself, what do I have to do to put more into it? Why? So that I can create a whole separate bucket of money. Am I talking good talk, y'all? Because I'm excited. I'm excited. Let's keep going. So, okay, so here's my point. So he says that if you were in California, you would have averaged 8% per year over the last 25 years. But with our system, what if you could have doubled that? What if you could have, instead of getting 8%, you were getting 16%? What if instead of getting 16%, you can get 32%? What if instead of getting 32%, you can get 64%? That's what I'm trying to tell you. Is that when we understand the power of recycling our money, you can create almost within reason based on your overall profile. You can literally create your own rate of return within reason. I don't want you saying, well, you say you can do any rate of return. No, no, no. It's going to be based on the factors within your arbitrage, your overall financial plan. But the point being made is that this money they made in California, that ain't no money. That's not any money. We can make a lot more money, a lot more money. We can make a lot more money by following the trifecta arbitrage. Okay, let's keep going. Trifecta arbitrage, double equity, double cash reserve, double cash flow. And we want to learn how to do this on demand, right? We want to be able to do this from a systematic process. That's the reason why I'm trying to challenge your thinking. You should know when you're going to double your property equity value. You should have an idea. When is your cash reserve? When are your cash reserves going to double? When is your cash flow going to double? Let's close on this. Remember, wealthy. What is wealthy? Enough passive income to cover all living expenses and losses, living expenses and losses. Now, if I'm thinking from the banker's perspective, what's rule number 3, ladies and gentlemen? Position yourself for financial. In other words, when we talk and we put together your case design, we should be talking about what's going to happen when things don't go according to plans, when unexpected things come up. You get a layoff notice, a tenant leaves too early, whatever. Because when we account for our losses ahead of time, rule number 3 says we're prepared so we can then do what? Thrive through it. Okay. So being wealthy means what? Enough passive, I'm going to say cash flow to do what? To cover all living expenses and what? And losses. Ooh, you can't tell me this is not good talk right here. This is how we want to be thinking as the banker. We want to be making a list. Okay, what can happen? All right. And then how do we build that into your case design? And be prepared for it. Why? So that you can thrive through it. I hope I said something today to help us all in chapter 2. I love what he says in chapter 1, that my intent in writing this book is to help you become wealthy. That's powerful. How many of you have somebody in your life right now that says, look, I'm in your life to make your 2025 wealthier than your 2024? Because I'm that guy. That's my intent and purpose for your life. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we want to become smarter financially. When we're smarter financially and we make decisions from a perspective of awareness, where we are smarter than the challenge, when we're smarter than the financial problem, where we're smarter than the situation, it's going to make you feel better. It's going to help you sleep better at night. It's not a matter, we're not talking about getting rich quick. We're just talking about being smarter. And as we become smarter and wiser, we're better able to navigate situations without the stress, the typical stress that people fall into. Why? Because I am prepared for it. And I'm using strategy that is literally positioning me to create true passive cash flow. Because when we take debt or we take property equity and we use that to create interest, excuse me, interest, cash reserve, cash flow, profit, and then velocity of money. When we're able to do that, it's a game changer. It's a game changer. I'm done. Any questions? Did I say anything helpful? We want to take debt and equity, because really equity, property equity, if you're not careful, it is creating debt for you. How? Because if my property equity is not creating interest, if my property equity is not creating cash reserves, if my property is not creating cash flow, if my property equity is not creating profit, and if my property equity is not creating velocity of money, and I'm going to throw this bonus point in here, if my property equity is not creating those things while at the same time still controlling that asset, I'm losing tens and hundreds and millions of dollars. And I don't even know it because there's no there's no systems that we use to monitor our money. It's not monitoring opportunity cost. And the same thing with debt. If my debt is not creating interest, if my debt is not creating cash reserve, if my debt is not creating cash flow, if my debt is not creating profit, if my debt is not creating velocity of money, and then the synergy and the combination of all of those things, I am losing thousands and thousands of dollars. Even though my business or my property may be cash flowing very well, you're still losing thousands of dollars in negative wealth transfer, and you don't even know it. Because the bank always makes more money than everybody else. And the bank is not the bad guy. The bank is the teacher. The question is, are we willing to start thinking and learning as the bank? And using that analogy, or the example he used about California appreciation of value, that's cute. But that tells you that the bank made a whole lot more money than that. And that are the systems that we want to be following. I'm done. Bye-bye.